Good morning. This is the Ancient Texan. I've got a podcast today, Supply Chain Basics, or perhaps Supply Chain for Dummies. There's a lot of discussion going on about supply chains, and it's my humble opinion that all supply chains start in the earth. I also think of oil, fossil fuels as part one of the supply chains we have. And in general, if you look at this plot in front of you, we have mining, oil chain, fracking, drilling, farming. You might put uh, forestry, but those are kind of the general categories of where things come from that end up being products. For instance, minerals brings you most of the metals, ceramics, a lot of the chemicals that we use in our world. Oil brings us plastic, chemicals, fertilizers, and that might be combined with some minerals. And then agriculture brings us food, and forestry would bring us wood, lumber. Then each of the minerals, um, I don't know, I would guess there's thousands of minerals that we use as a culture. Those are made into often commodity like products like copper, lead, zinc, aluminum oxide, fertilizer like ammonium nitrate, ammonium uh, sulfate, potassium sulfate. So we've got that whole second layer of commodity like products. They're not all commodities, but they all originate in the earth and they're transformed into products by using energy. To move up this graph, you have to use energy to convert the minerals that you take from the ground and even the oil you take from the ground into products. And then from this commodity like level of commodity like products, you can, for instance, with metals, shape, cut, weld, um, combine, glue, whatever, transform the commodity like materials into another layer, more complicated products through manufacturing. And of course, you can make, you know, manufacturing, you make all sorts of parts and products and cars, consumer goods. Um, so from the bottom to the top, each one of these separate chains to each product is a supply chain for each individual product that ends up at the top. Now, what we're doing with tariffs it is really kind of crazy. Um, we're doing most of the tariffs in the U.S. at the level between um, the commodity-like products and the cars. Although we do have some tariffs on aluminum and steel. Now, here's a very interesting reality check. The bottom left corner might be considered where all supply chains originate, with the exception of oil and agriculture. Now, you can get these minerals from our country, the US, or you can get them from another country like Canada, Australia, Ukraine, from countries that are friendly to us. Or you can get these minerals from countries that are not friendly to us, like Russia, China. Rare earths are a good example right now. China is holding back the supply of rare earths. I was on a rare earth project about um, 7 or 8 years ago, somewhere around there. And we came up with, it was out of Greenland, we came up with a flow sheet and a way of concentrating the rare earths. Um, and it wasn't profitable. But what if we redid that profit analysis right now when the supply of rare earths is being withheld by China? Well, that's um, what the U.S. and probably a lot of the developed world forgot when they outsourced everything to China. That analysis of whether we should open the mine, do the metal refining, assumed that the countries that we're buying them from was going to always supply us and that we were not going to be dependent on them. And like with rare earths, neodymium, we can't make our magnets, can't make our electric cars, can't make a lot of controllers, electronics. So, what's the value of that neodymium to a Ford Motor Company when their manufacturing plant is shut down? And how are tariffs on that upper layer, you know, metals, cars, consumer goods that we're putting in, pardon me, that we're putting into place under Trump? How is that going to help us make a car that needs a pound of neodymium? It's not. Same thing holds for copper. We're putting a 50% tariff on copper. That might actually have an outside chance of working because we have copper deposits in the U.S. There's one in Tucson that's been waiting for 20 years for a permit. We supply 60% of our copper and we have some deposits. So putting a tariff on copper might help. 50%? Well, the problem with that is that it affects the price of everything above. When you go through the minerals, everything that uses copper, all the way up to all the cars and consumer goods, electric transmission, electronics, etc., is affected. Um, and it still doesn't necessarily get us a permit to open the mine up in Tucson. And it doesn't give us the expertise and the metallurgical, extractive metallurgists that we need to exploit our minerals. So there's a way of using tariffs to help. And the tariff on copper is a little more along that line, although there obviously needs to be more than just the tariff, and 50% is probably going to cause more pain than it causes encouragement. But the tariffs on the upper layers, like cars and stuff, that's actually going to remove technology and plants and manufacturing from the US. The bottom is too, but it has a chance of starting to develop our mines in the US and the mines in countries that are our friends, if we still have any. So there's a strategy here to use tariffs carefully with a plan that includes our allies, and then there's just random tariffs that make no sense at all. But even the tariffs are not a cure all, they're just part of a much bigger plan that ought to be happening together with a master plan with our allies. Anyway, this is the ancient Texan just being annoyed by our lack of a master plan. This is a simplified plot, but the master plan would be the same thing. It's just it would have thousands of boxes on this uh, supply chain. Anyway, this is the ancient Texan. Hope you have a good day, and hope you enjoyed this supply chain for dummies.